Alright, how's it going everyone? Jinsula here with a brand new Pokemon Go video. I hope your day is going really well, and let's get right into it. Okay, so Niantic has finally revealed all the details for part 2 of this year's Halloween event. And unfortunately, it seems like there's a lot of mixed reactions from the Pokemon Go community. There's certainly a lot of people who are very happy about this event and think it's really exciting, but there's also a group of players who are feeling very disappointed. And personally speaking, I feel like I lean more towards the former. Like, I'm actually very excited about this event. I think there's a lot of cool things to go after. But for the most part, I can understand why players are frustrated and they're feeling like Niantic is continuously downgrading their Halloween events. So in order to understand a lot of that disappointment, let's first talk about all the details for this event so that we can have some context on why players are not liking it. Alright, so first and foremost, this Halloween Part 2 event is going to start on October 28th at 10 o'clock a.m. local time, and it's going to go until November 3rd at 8 o'clock p.m. local time. These are going to be the featured Pokemon for this event. You're going to see Froakie wearing a witch hat, a Rowlet wearing a top hat, as well as Gigantamax Gengar, and all of these can potentially be shiny. Speaking of which, both Costume Froakie and Rowlet can evolve, and they actually implemented the costume versions of their evolved forms. So if you end up getting yourself a shiny of either Froakie or Rowlet wearing a costume, make sure you evolve it so you can get yourself a Greninja or a Decidueye, with each of them wearing their respective costumes. And then Gigantamax Gengar is going to be available in max battles, and it's going to require a good number of trainers. So make sure you prepare for this by having a bunch of your Dynamax Pokemon maxed out, and continuously farm those max particles so that you could power up their moves before this Pokemon makes its debut. Now during this event, these are going to be the event bonuses. You're going to get double the amount of catch candy, which is pretty typical for every single Halloween, and you're going to have an increased chance at getting XL candy when you catch Pokemon with nice throws or better. That is another nice bonus because when it comes to some of these Halloween Pokemon, you do not often see them in the game. So getting a bunch of XL candy could be a huge priority considering that you may not see them until next year. Now, specifically on October 31st, which is of course Halloween, costume Pokemon that you catch will have a chance at giving you Rare Candy and Rare Candy XL when you catch them with nice throws or better. That is a pretty massive bonus, especially when it comes to getting Rare Candy XL. That is something you should definitely utilize, especially because getting Rare Candy XL is how you could max out some of those powerful legendaries and shadow Pokemon. Now, hatching from 7km eggs, and this is definitely something you should pay attention to, you're going to potentially hatch Vulpix wearing a costume, Pichu wearing a witch hat, Froakie wearing a witch hat, and Rowlet wearing the Halloween top hat. And all of these will have an increased shiny rate, so 7km eggs are definitely going to be important for you to hatch during this event. Now, these are going to be the wild encounters during this event. You're going to have Vulpix wearing a spooky costume, Shuppet, Piplup wearing a Halloween costume, Woobat, Zorua with an increased shiny chance, Froakie wearing a witch hat, Inkay, Phantump, Punkaboo wearing a costume, and then of course the new costume Rowlet. And then as an uncommon spawn, we're gonna have the original Pikachu wearing a witch hat. So if you still do not have that Pokemon, that is definitely one you should look out for. Now in 1-star raids, you're gonna see Pikachu wearing a witch hat, Froakie wearing a witch hat, and Rowlet wearing a top hat within 1-star raids, and both Froakie and Rowlet are gonna have an increased shiny chance. And then in 3-star raids, you're gonna have Gengar wearing a Halloween hat, Umbreon and Drifblim wearing a Halloween hat as well. And all three of these will have an increased shiny chance. Finally, these are going to be the Pokemon you can get in field research tasks. They're going to include Pikachu wearing a witch hat, Vulpix wearing a costume, Piplup wearing a Halloween costume, Froakie with a witch hat, Rowlet with a top hat, and the new Pokemon Morpeko, and rare field research tasks will also have Spiritomb. You're also going to be able to get Mega Energy for Mega Gengar, Mega Houndoom, Mega Sableye, Mega Banette, as well as Mega Absol. So yeah, with all these details, personally speaking, I'm actually really excited about this event. On top of getting Gigantamax Gengar in max battles, we're going to be getting ourselves some costume Pokemon that are actually relevant. When it comes to Rowlet and Froakie, both of them evolve into Pokemon that are actually useful. And I think getting a shiny version of these costume Pokemon is definitely going to be exciting. And on top of that, they're not going to be locking these new costume Pokemon behind just field research tasks or a paid timed research. They're actually going to be spawning in the wild, and I think that's something that Niantic deserves credit for. They've been going down a path of having very special costume Pokemon locked behind paid timed research, and I feel like this is a nice course of change, and it's something that I really wish Niantic did more of, because in the past, yes, this was something that was of the norm. But I do think that for a lot of players, they're feeling like this is a big downgrade from last year's Halloween event, and I'm a little bit confused by that because I really feel like they're going all out this year. I do think one of the biggest points of frustration and disappointment comes down to one Pokemon, Mimikyu. Yeah, we're once again not going to be getting this Pokemon for a Halloween event. And I think for a lot of players, they're getting fed up by that because at this point, this is a Pokemon that a lot of players just want to get for their Pokedex. And I think for Niantic, they're holding off on releasing this Pokemon for at least another year because they're trying to figure out the gimmick behind the move Disguise. I'm sure they're going to cater this Pokemon very similarly to Pokemon like Zorua and Ditto. And I think because of that, Niantic is holding off on releasing Mimikyu into the wild, and that's going to create a lot of frustrations for players who really want this Pokemon in their collection. I mean, for a lot of people that I talk to, at this point, they don't even care about any kind of gimmicks with Mimikyu. They just want this Pokemon in the game. They would rather have it in the game with just basic moves and then have any kind of gimmick be introduced later on, rather than Niantic continuously delaying the release of this Pokemon. So I totally understand why players are disappointed that once again, we're not going to be getting Mimikyu. Now, another point of frustration and disappointment that I'm seeing from players is that they're not going to be releasing Polteageist this year. That is another fan favorite ghost-type Pokemon that a lot of players were anticipating being a part of this year's Halloween event, mainly because with this Halloween event, there's a huge emphasis on the Galar region. So naturally, people expected that Polteageist might be introduced this year's Halloween event, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. Unless Niantic gives us a nice surprise in the coming weeks, it doesn't seem like we're going to be getting this Pokemon with this event, and I think for a lot of players that was incredibly frustrating, especially because within their social media posts teasing this event, it did seem like they were hinting at Polteageist being released, and unfortunately that's not going to be so. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see what Niantic does, but unfortunately, as of right now, it looks like Polteageist is not going to be in the game. Oh, and I just found this out, but apparently those field research tasks that award you with Spiritomb require you to complete 3 raids. So even though this was somewhat advertised as a free-to-play method for getting Spiritomb, in reality, it's one that will require you to spend a couple of Pokecoins. And then finally, I think a lot of players are frustrated that there's no new shiny with this year's Halloween event. Like last year, they introduced a new shiny, and I think a lot of players were expecting some sort of new shiny for a ghost-type Pokemon. Like I heard Greavard was a good candidate for a new shiny. But it just seems like a lot of players are going to be disappointed in that regard. There's going to be no new shiny for us to go after this year. Now, I do think that when it comes to these Halloween events, people tend to have rose-tinted glasses. I mean, in the past, we've had some stellar Halloween events that just outshadowed every single Halloween event. And I can understand that those are going to be tall standards for Niantic to reach. And yeah, this year's Halloween event is going to be a letdown compared to some of those past Halloween events. But I still think overall this is going to be a good one. It's definitely going to be in the upper tier, in my opinion, when it comes to Halloween events. And in my opinion, there's a lot to look forward to. There's a lot to actually gain from this year's event. I do think overall they could have done a lot of things better. They could have introduced a brand new Pokemon from the Galar region, like Polteageist. I think that was a huge missed opportunity. And then yeah, not having some sort of new shiny, I think is also a big missed opportunity because that would have definitely drew a lot of players to go out and explore, like what Niantic wants them to do. Of course, we are getting a new Gigantamax Pokemon. I do not necessarily know how that's going to fare with the Pokemon Go community. It seems like when it comes to max battles and Dynamax Pokemon, it's just a complete split right now within the community. It just seems like there's half of players who are really excited about it. There's another half that just do not care about it whatsoever. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see whether or not this actually draws a lot of those players to actually care about max battles. But yeah, that's really going to depend on how Niantic implements it. So yeah, these are just my own thoughts and opinions regarding this Halloween Part 2 event, and I don't want to invalidate players who are feeling frustrated or feeling disappointed. It's totally valid to feel that way. I mean, it seems like Niantic has been catering to a very specific subset of players as of late, so if you're someone who really feels like Niantic could do more, it's totally okay for you to feel that way. I do agree with you that Niantic could definitely make these events a lot better, but for what it's worth, I do think they did a pretty good job with this year's Halloween event, and there are a couple of things that we should actually look forward to, and I really hope you could kind of see that, but yeah, in any case, that's going to be it for this video. Let me know your thoughts regarding everything that I talked about down below. Do you agree with me that this is actually looking to be a decent event, or do you completely disagree with me and you feel like there's a lot of things Niantic could have done better? Definitely share those thoughts down below in the comments, and let's have a great discussion. Thank you so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. I'm Jinsula. Be safe, have fun, love yourself, and I'll catch you all later.